Now I'm free.
现在我自由了。
I'm still going to work because you got to do something with your life.
我还是要去工作，因为你得为自己的生活做点事情。
But I'm going to work on only the things that I want when I want.
但是我只会在我想要的时候做我想做的事情。
And it's going to be much more creative expression and much less about money.
而且这将会是更多的创意表达，而不是关于金钱。
You're not going to get rich renting out your time.
你不会靠出租你的时间致富。
But you say that you will get rich by giving society what it wants but does not yet know.
但是你说你会通过提供社会想要但尚未知道的东西来致富。
That's right.
没错。
So essentially, as we talked about before, money is IOUs from society saying you did.
所以基本上正如我们之前所谈到的，金钱是社会对你所做的事情的欠条。
Something good in the past, now here's something that we owe you for the future.
过去的美好事物，现在这是我们欠你们的未来。
And so society will pay you for creating things that it wants.
因此社会会为你创造它所需要的东西而付钱给你。
But society doesn't yet know how to create those things because if it did, it would need you.
但社会尚未知道如何创造这些东西，因为如果知道的话，它就会需要你。
They would already be stamped out big time.
他们早就被彻底消灭了。
Almost everything in your house, in your workplace, and on the street used to be technology at one point in time.
几乎你家里、工作场所和街上的所有东西，曾经某一时刻都是科技。
There was a time when oil was technology that made J.B. Rockefeller rich.
曾几何时，石油是让约翰 D. 洛克菲勒致富的技术。
There was a time when cars were technology that made Henry Ford rich.
曾经有一段时间，汽车是让亨利·福特致富的技术。
So technology is just a set of things, as Alan Kay said, that don't quite work yet.
所以，正如艾伦·凯所说，科技只是一组尚未完全运作的事物。
Once something works, it's no longer technology, so society always wants new things.
一旦某样东西运作了，它就不再是技术，所以社会总是想要新的东西。
And if you want to be wealthy, you want to figure out which one of those things you can provide for society.
如果你想要变得富有，你需要弄清楚你能为社会提供做哪一件事。
That it does not yet know how to get, but it will want.
它尚未知道如何获得，但将会想要的东西。
Natural to you and within your skill set, within your capabilities.
对你来说是自然的，并且在你的技能范围内。
And then you have to figure out how to scale it, because if you just build one of it, that's not enough.
然后你必须弄清楚如何扩展它，因为如果你只建造一个的话，那就不足。
You've got to build thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions or billions of them, so everybody can have one.
你必须建造成千上万、数十万、数百万或数十亿个它们，所以每个人都可以有一个。
Steve Jobs and his team of course figured out that society would want smartphones, computer.
史蒂夫·贾伯斯和他的团队当然明白社会会需要智能手机、电脑。
In their pocket that had all the phone capability times 100 and be easy to use.
在他们的口袋里有一个具备所有电话功能的设备，而且功能是原来的100倍，并且易于使用。
So they figured out how to build that, and then they figured out how to scale it.
所以他们想出了如何建造那个，然后他们想出了如何扩展它。
And they figured out how to get one into every first world citizen's pocket, and eventually every third world citizen too.
他们想出办法让每个第一世界国家的公民都拥有一个，最终每3个世界公民中的一个也是。
And so because of that they're handsomely rewarded, and Apple is the most valuable company in the world.
因此他们得到了丰厚的回报，而苹果是世界上最有价值的公司。
The way I tried to put it was that the entrepreneur's job is to try to bring the high end to the mass market.
我试图表达的方式是，企业家的工作是尝试将高端带到大众市场。
It starts as high end. First it starts as an act of creativity.
它开始于高端，首先它开始于一个创意的行为。
First you create it just because you want it. You want it, and you know how to build it, and you need it.
首先你创造它只是因为你想要它，你想要它，你知道如何建造它，而且你需要它。
And so you build it for yourself, and then you figure out how to get it to other people.
于是你为自己建造它，然后你想办法把它传递给其他人。
And then for a little while rich people have it.
然后有一段时间富人拥有它。
Like for example, rich people had chauffeurs and then they had black town cars and then.
例如有钱人有司机，然后他们有黑色的豪华轿车，然后
Uber came along and everyone's private driver was available to everybody. Uber.
出现了每个人的私人司机都可以为所有人服务。
And now you can even see Uber pools that are replacing shuttle buses because it's more convenient.
现在你甚至可以看到 Uber 共乘车取代了接驳巴士，因为它更方便。
And then you get scooters which are even for the down market of that.
然后你会看到更延伸市场的滑板车。
So you're right, it's about distributing what rich people used to have to everybody.
所以你是对的，这是关于将富人曾经拥有的东西分配给所有人。
But the entrepreneur's job starts even before that, which is creation.
但企业家的工作甚至在那之前就已经开始了，那就是创造。
Entrepreneurship is essentially an act of creating something new from scratch, predicting.
创业本质上是一种从无到有创造新事物的行为。
The society will want it and then figuring out how to scale it and get it to everybody.
预测社会会需要它，然后想办法扩展规模，并让每个人都能获得。
In a profitable way and self-sustaining way.
以盈利且自给自足的方式。
Let's look at this next tweak, which I thought was cryptic and also super interesting about the kind of job or career that you might have.
让我们来看看这条我认为既神秘又超级有趣的下一条推文，你可能会从事的工作或职业。
You said the internet has massively broadened the possible space of careers. Most people haven't figured this out yet.
你说互联网大大扩展了可能的职业空间，大多数人还没弄明白这件事。
The fundamental property of the internet more than any other single thing is it connects every human to each other human on the planet.
互联网最根本的特性是它能连接一切每个人对这个星球上的每一个人。
You can now reach everyone whether it's by emailing them personally, whether it's by.
您现在可以联系到每个人，无论是通过个人电子邮件还是通过
broadcasting to them on Twitter, whether it's by posting something on Facebook that day.
在 Twitter 上向他们广播，无论是通过在 Facebook 上发布某些内容。
Find whether it's by pulling up a website that come and access connects everyone.
找出是否通过建立网站来让他们访问并连接每个人。
So the internet is an internetworking tool.
所以网际网路是一种互联网工具。
It connects everybody. That is its superpower, so you want to use that.
它连接每个人，那是它的超能力，所以你想用那个。
What that helps you figure out is that the internet means that you can find your audience.
这帮助你弄清楚的是，互联网意味着你可以找到你的观众。
For your product or your talent and skill, no matter how far away they are.
无论他们距离多远，对于您的产品或您的才华和技能。
For example, Nenad, who is Elicitus, if he was in these videos pre-internet, how would?
例如 Nena 如果在这些影片中出现于网际网路之前，他会怎么样？
He get the message out there. It would just be what would he do?
他把讯息传达出去了，这只是他会做什么？
He would run around where he lives in his neighborhood showing it to people on a computer.
他会在他住的社区里跑来跑去，向人们展示电脑上的内容。
Or a screen, or he would try to get it played at his local movie theater.
或者在荧幕上播放，或者他会尝试让当地的电影院播放。
It was impossible. It only works because you can put it on the internet.
这是不可能的，它之所以有效，是因为你可以把它放在网路上。
And then how many people in the world are really interested in it?
然后世界上有多少人对它真的感兴趣？
Or even interested in what we're talking about?
甚至对我们正在谈论的事情感兴趣。
Are really gonna absorb it, right? It's gonna be a very small subset of humanity.
真的会吸收，对吧？这将会是人类的一个非常小的子集。
The key is being able to reach them, so what the internet does is allows any niche obsession.
关键是能够联系到他们，所以互联网所做的就是允许任何小众癖好。
Which could be just the weirdest thing. It could be like people who collect snakes.
这可能是最奇怪的事情，这可能就像那些收集蛇的人。
To people who like to ride hot air balloons, to people who like to sail around the world by themselves.
给喜欢乘坐热气球的人，给喜欢独自环游世界的人。
Just one person on a craft or someone who's obsessed with miniature cooking.
只有一个人在船上，或是对迷你烹饪着迷的人。
Like there's this whole Japanese miniature cooking phenomenon.
就像是这个日本迷你烹饪现象一样。
Or there's a show about a woman who goes in people's houses and tidies it up right.
或者有一个关于一个女人的节目，谁会进入别人的房子并整理干净，对吗？
So whatever niche obsession you have, the internet allows you to scale.
所以无论你有什么小众癖好，互联网让你能够扩展规模。
Now that's not to say that what you build will be the next Facebook or reach billions of users.
现在这并不是说你所建造的东西将成为下一个 Facebook 或达到数十亿用户。
But if you just wanna reach 50,000 passionate people like you, there's an audience out there for you.
但如果你只想触及5万名热情的人，像你这样的人，在外面有观众等着你。
So the beauty of this is that we have 7 billion beings on this planet.
所以这其中的美妙之处在于我们拥有这个星球上的70亿生灵。
The combinatorics of human DNA are incredible. Everyone is completely different.
人类 DNA 的组合数学是令人难以置信的，每个人都完全不同。
You'll never meet any two people who are even vaguely similar to each other that can substitute for each other.
你永远不会遇到任何两个人，彼此即使只有些微相似的人可以互相替代的。
It's not like you can say, well, Nivi just left my life, so I can have this other person come in.
这并不是说 Nivi 就这样离开了我的生活，这样我就可以让另一个人进来。
And he's just like Nivi and I get the same feelings, the same responses and the same ideas.
他就像 Nivi 一样，我有同样的感觉、相同的回应和相同的想法。
No, there are no substitutes for people. People are completely unique.
不，没有任何人可以替代人，是完全独一无二的。
So given that each person has different skill sets, different interests, different obsessions.
所以，鉴于每个人都有不同的技能组合、不同的兴趣、不同的痴迷。
And it's that diversity that becomes a creative superpower, so each person can be creatively superb.
而正是这种多样性成为了一种创造力的超能力，所以每个人都可以创造性的出色。
At their own unique thing. But before that didn't matter.
在他们自己独特的事情上，但在那之前并不重要。
Because if you were living in a little fishing village in Italy,
因为如果你住在一个小渔村里，
like your fishing village, didn't necessarily need your completely unique skill.
在意大利像你的渔村不一定需要你完全独特的技能。
And you had to conform to just the few jobs that were available.
而且你不得不仅仅符合少数几个工作可用的。
But now today you can be completely unique. You can go out on the internet.
但现在今天你可以完全独一无二，你可以上网。
And you can find your audience, and you can build a business and create a product.
你可以找到你的观众，你可以建立一个企业并创造一个产品。
And build wealth, and make people happy, just uniquely expressing yourself through the internet.
并创造财富，并使人们快乐，只是通过互联网独特的表达自己。
Space of careers has been so broadened, esports players people making millions of dollars.
职业的空间已经大大扩展了，电子竞技选手赚取数百万美元。
Playing Fortnite people creating videos, and uploading them YouTube broadcasters bloggers.
玩堡垒之夜，其他人创建影片并将它们上传到 YouTube 的广播员和博客作者。
Podcasters Joe Rogan I read true or false I don't know.
播客主持人乔罗根，我读到的是真还是假，我不知道。
But I read that he's gonna make about $100 million a year on his podcast, and he's had 2 billion downloads.
但是我读到他将会赚每年大约1亿美元，在他的播客上，他已经有20亿次下载量。
Even PewDiePie, this is a hilarious tweet that I retweeted the other day.
即使是 PewDiePie 也觉得这是一则搞笑的推文。我前几天转发的那条推文。
PewDiePie is the #1 trusted name in news. This is a kid I think in Sweden PewDiePie.
是新闻界最受信赖的名字，这是我认为在瑞典的一个孩子。
And he's got 3 times the distribution of the top cable news networks just on his news channel.
而且他的分销量是3倍，在他的新闻频道上顶级有线新闻网之一。
Not even on his entertainment channel, the internet enables any niche interest.
甚至连他的娱乐频道也没有互联网使任何小众兴趣成为可能。
As long as you're the best at it to scale out, and the great news is because every human is different.
只要你在这方面是最好的，就能扩展好消息，是因为每个人都是不同的。
Everyone is the best at something being themselves. Another tweet I have that is worth weaving in.
每个人在做自己时都是最棒的。我有另一则推文值得加入。
But didn't go into this tweet storm was a very simple one.
但没有进入这场推文风暴的原因非常简单。
I like things when I can compress them down, because they are easy to remember and easy to hook onto.
我喜欢可以压缩的东西，因为它们容易记住，也容易吸引人。
But that one was escape competition through authenticity. It's because you're copying them.
但那一个是通过真实性逃避竞争，所以当你在与人竞争时，
It's because you're copying them. It's because you're trying to do the same thing.
那是因为你在抄袭他们，那是因为你在尝试做同样的事情。
But every human is different. Don't copy. I know we're mimetic creatures.
但每个人都是不同的，不要抄袭。我知道我们是模仿的生物。
And René Girard has a whole mimesis theory, but it's much easier than that.
而雷内·基哈德
René Girard
有一整套模仿理论，但这要容易得多。
Don't imitate, don't copy, just do your own thing.
不要模仿，不要抄袭，只要做你自己的事。
No one can compete with you on being you. It's that simple.
没有人能在做自己这件事上和你竞争，就这么简单。
And so the more authentic you are to who you are and what you love to do, the less competition you're gonna have.
因此，你越是真实的做自己，以及你喜欢做的事情，你将会面临较少的竞争。
So you can escape competition through authenticity when you realize that no one can compete with you on being you.
所以，你可以通过真实性来逃避竞争。当你意识到没有人能与你竞争，成为你自己时，
And normally that would have been useless advice.
通常那会是无用的建议。
Pre-internet, post-internet, you can turn that into a career.
网际网路前，网际网路后，你可以把它变成一个职业。
Talk a little bit about what industries you should think about working in, what kind of job you should have.
谈谈哪些行业你应该考虑进去工作，你应该从事什么样的工作，
And who you might want to work with.
以及你可能想要合作的人。
So you said one should pick an industry where you can play long-term games with long-term people.
所以你说应该选择一个行业，在那里你可以与长期合作的人一起进行长期游戏。
Why? Yeah, this is an insight into what makes Silicon Valley work.
为什么？是的，这是一个洞察矽谷运作方式的见解。
And what makes high-trust societies work, essentially all the benefits in life.
以及什么使高信任社会运作，基本上生活中的所有好处
Come from compound interests, whether it's in relationships or making money.
来自复利，无论是在关系中还是赚钱。
Or in learning, so compound interest is a marvelous force, where it's like you start out with 1x what you have.
或在学习中，所以复利是一种奇妙的力量，这就像你一开始拥有一个 x 的情况。
And then if you increase 20% a year for 30 years, it's not that you got 30 years times 20% added on.
然后，如果你每年增加20%，持续30年，这并不是说你得到了30年乘以20%的额外时间。
It was compounding, so it just grew and grew and grew.
它正在加剧，所以它就一直长大，长大，再长大。
Until you suddenly got a massive amount of whatever it is, whether it's goodwill or love or relationships or money.
直到你突然得到了大量的某种东西，无论是善意、爱、关系还是金钱。
So I think compound interest is a very important force. You have to be able to play a long-term game.
所以我认为复利是一个非常重要的力量，你必须能够玩一场长期的游戏。
And long-term games are good, not just for compound interest.
长期游戏是好的，不仅仅是为了复利。
They are also good for trust. If you look at prisoner's dilemma type games, the solution to prisoner's dilemma is tit for tat.
它们也有助于建立信任。如果你看囚徒困境类型的游戏，囚徒困境的解决方案是以牙还牙。
Which is I'm just gonna do to you what you did last time to me with some forgiveness.
我只是要对你这样做，你上次对我所做的事情，我会带着一些宽恕。
In case there was a mistake made, but that only works in an iterated prisoner's dilemma. In other words, we play the game multiple times.
以防万一有错误发生，但那只在重复囚徒困境中有效。换句话说，我们多次玩这个游戏。
So if you're in a situation like, for example, you're in Silicon Valley.
所以，如果你处于一个情况下，例如你在矽谷
Like, for example, you're in Silicon Valley, where people are doing business with each other.
例如你在矽谷人们彼此做生意的地方，他们彼此认识，彼此信任。
Then they do right by each other, because they know this person will be around.
然后他们彼此善待，因为他们知道这个人会在附近。
For the next game, now of course that doesn't always work.
下一场比赛，当然这并不总是有效，
Because you can make so much money in one move in Silicon Valley.
因为你可以赚很多钱在矽谷的一次行动中。
Sometimes people betray each other, because they are just like I'm gonna get rich enough, about this that I don't care.
有时候人们会互相背叛，因为他们就像所以我不在乎，我要变得足够富有，所以我不在乎。
So there can be exceptions to all these circumstances. But essentially, if you want to be successful, you have to work with other people.
所以所有这些情况都可能有例外，但基本上，如果你想成功，你必须与他人合作。
And you have to figure out who can you trust and who can you trust over a long period.
你必须弄清楚谁是你可以信任的，以及谁是你可以长期信任的。
Of time that you can just keep playing the game with them.
你可以一直和他们一起玩这个游戏的时间。
So that compound interest and high trust will make it easier to play the game and will let.
以便复利和高度信任能使游戏更容易进行并让。
You collect the major rewards which are usually at the end of the cycle.
你会在周期结束时获得主要奖励。
So for example, Warren Buffett has done really well as an investor in the US stock market.
例如沃伦·巴菲特作为美国股市的投资者表现得非常出色。
But the biggest reason he could do that was because the US stock market has been stable.
但他能这么做的最大原因是因为美国股市一直很稳定。
And around and didn't get, for example, seized by the government during a bad administration.
并且四处走动，并且没有被政府在糟糕的管理期间没收。
Or the US didn't plunge into some war the underlying platform didn't get destroyed.
或者美国没有陷入某场战争，基础平台就不会被摧毁。
So in his case he was playing a long-term game.
所以在他的情况下，他在玩一场长期的游戏。
And the trust came from the US stock market stability.
信任来自于美国股市的稳定性。